Good morning and welcome. My name is Amandeep Singh. I am the Student Engagement Coordinator and Academic Advisor for the SSHA Academic Advising Office. I advise students majoring in Management and Business Economics, Economics, and Anthropology, as well as the minors for those specific majors as well. We have a new Geospatial Technology minor as well that I advise that we're going to talk more about today. I would like to welcome you all to Virtual Open House so that you can learn a little bit more about our Geospatial Technology minor and what you can do with it. Before we begin talking about that a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Professor Rajovic to introduce himself, and then we'll also have our other panelists introduce himself as well.
Oh, hi, I'm Professor Karl Rajovic, and I teach several of the courses in the new Geospatial Technology minor. And we're going to there's one, when we'll look at a few minutes at the actual requirements for the minor, but I actually have a PhD in geography, so I'm actually a geographer, and I've taught various GIS and geography courses all my career. And my colleague, Dr. Lerkari, is also here to introduce himself.
Thank you, Karl and Amandeep. My name is Professor Nicola Lerkari, and I am a specialist in geospatial technology. In the minor, I'm assigned to teach one of the upper level courses called Introduction to Remote Sensing and Global Positioning. Differently than my colleague, Professor Rajovic, my background is in cultural heritage studies, and I applied the technology we teach in the minor to the study of cultural sites and parks in California and in other countries. So I'm very excited about sharing my expertise and also lead some of the lab-based courses that are offered in the minor.
Awesome. Thank you both for introducing yourselves. So before we talk a little bit more about the minor and what you can exactly do with it, I did want to go over the requirements itself. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can go through those requirements that you can find on our catalog website. So for students that are interested in this minor, you will find it under catalog.ucmerced.edu. If you go to the appropriate catalog year here, which would be 21-22, just because it's our new minor, that's where you're going to find our Geospatial Technology minor located. So in terms of requirements, just some brief knowledge on what's required for the minor. You will be asked to complete one of the following two lower division requirements, either Introduction to Geographic Information Systems. Well, actually, it's the same course. I think it's just titled two different ways. But ultimately, you will be asked to complete that course. And then in addition to that, you will be asked to complete 4 upper division geospatial technology courses. There are specific courses listed here that you will be able to choose from. I do ask that if you have specific questions regarding the minor, please feel free to come and visit me during virtual walk-in hours or set up an appointment with me and we can discuss course planning for the minor. But with that being said, I want to go ahead and hand it back over to Professor Rajovic and Lerkari to be able to talk about the minor a little bit more and what exactly can students do with it.
Okay, yeah, so first I just wanted to mention that some of the courses are cross-listed with geography course prefixes. So as a student, you have the option of, for example, taking the geography prefix course, like for Introduction to GIS, Geog 2, because often when one, as we'll talk about later with careers in GIS, it might look better on your transcript to have the geog prefixes, but it doesn't matter, they're cross-listed. And another thing that is interesting, and it will appear next year, is we're adding a GIS certificate. We've worked with the registrar where students who complete the courses required for the minor will also get a GIS certificate on their transcript. Now, this will be, interestingly, it's what is called a credit-based certificate. So while we recommend that a student, for example, also does an internship, they don't have to, you know, because we're in a somewhat small city, you know, where it's not as easy to find necessarily an internship as if we were in the Bay Area or LA or something like that. We do also have, that's why we'll have a projects course where students could work on the same sort of project they would do in an internship, but just on campus. Though it's also possible to find internships on campus. You know, you could find, once you've taken our Intro GIS course, Heritage Studies 2 or Geog 2, and you know the basics of the industry standard software, Arc Pro, you would be in a good position to find, for example, you could find a professor anywhere on campus who might need some GIS work done and part-time. And even if it was paid or not paid, you could do it as in, we could let you register for the internships in geospatial technology, Heritage Studies 192. And you could then, that could count as one of the 4 required upper level courses. So basically, with the minor, what's interesting is next year, the certificate will become effective. So even if this year you were to take the, in the spring, I'm offering Introduction to GIS in this spring semester, you would, by the time you could actually finish the minor, the GIS certificate would be part of it too. Okay, let me see, let Dr. Lerkari can add to what I just said now too.
Yes, I wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the course called HS 193 or Geography 193. Also, these are cross-listed. So when you see the double prefix, that means the courses are cross-listed. Again, the preference depending on your major and what you want to have in your transcript, but effectively it's the same course. And I wanted to talk about projects in geospatial technology. So that course, usually we will recommend that you take it as one of the last you take in the minor, because at that point you should be quite independent in developing a project that uses the techniques and tools that you learn throughout other courses. And then you will work with the instructor of that course in that semester to work on a project that could be either proposed by the instructor or even proposed by the student. So we let this pretty open. And the exciting part of this course is that you will be building your digital portfolio in GIS and geospatial technology. So then you can produce beautiful maps, you can produce some geospatial data analysis, you can work on some mapping projects that can really showcase what you learned during the minor, and then you can discuss that in your cover letters or during your job interviews when you go out in the job market. So we feel that that course and the internship that could both be taken, so they are not mutually exclusive, can really boost the chances that a student has to then be marketable in the career path that I will be discussing later today. But these 2 courses are really what will make your experience in the minor unique and more marketable.
Awesome. Thank you both for sharing that. So just to once again emphasize that point, as we talked about for the lower division course, know that it's cross-listed, right? You can choose whether it appears as HS2 or Geog2. It just depends on how you want it to appear and what course you end up selecting when you register for the course. Same thing goes with the upper division course here for HS 161 or Geog 161. When you are registering for your courses, whichever one you actually choose to register for, that's how it's going to appear on your transcript. So that's just something to be aware of. So moving forward, talking a little bit more on the career side, can we have you all kind of talk about how did this minor really come about and what can students do with it moving forward once they graduate from UC Merced?
Well, the demand for geospatial technology skills is widespread across all of the various employment sectors. I mean, people talk generally about the public versus the private sector, that there's, in a sense, two main areas of employment, right? Like you work for a private company, or you work for the government or the state, a state government. So though really there's three main areas. You have the education sector, then you have the government sector. So for example, if someone's working for a university or a high school, that's, teaching, that's sort of seen as different from, say, working for the water department or the social services or the police department or some more regular, what we think of as a government job. But what's interesting about GIS is all through the various employment sectors, there's a need for it either as a minor where, for example, someone might see themselves mainly as a business or a law person or something like that and want to work, let's say, work for an insurance company. But then insurance companies have a heavy reliance now on GIS because they're always looking at the risks to what they insure. So they're going to now be very interested in the risk, fire risk for properties or flood risk for properties. That's all going to be, there's a heavy reliance there on GIS for that. So one might find being interested in GIS and doing GIS work, then one could still work for an insurance company, even though one never doesn't know anything about insurance and never studied business. You see what I mean? But then in the government, especially the military, defense, intelligence sectors, there's a heavy demand, of course, for GIS mapping type skills. And there you have very large employers like geospatial agencies, for example, that would hire a lot of people just to be sort of a geospatial technology expert, right? So it's really widespread. It's very interesting. So the advantage to the minor is by just having a GIS minor and the certificate. A lot of employers actually, interestingly, will prefer to see a GIS certificate and see that as something that catches their eye more than the minor, interestingly. But that's okay. That's why we're adding the certificate to the minor, right? You could major in anything you want and then minor in geospatial technology, and that could be the edge. That could give you an edge in finding a job, a niche for yourself somewhere. Okay, let me see what others have to add to that then.
Yeah, I think I also wanted to speak a little bit more about other employment opportunities in government. So for instance, through my experience, I work a lot with California State Parks or the National Park Service or the US Forest Service. And all of them manage land in California, state or federal land. And they use, and they have a high demand of specialists in GIS and other geospatial technology that help map and manage these natural or cultural resources. So those would be other options in government, but even at the small level, like an incorporated city like Merced or Modesto or Fresno, any city in the Bay Area or in Southern California, have a need of, like, in their city planning, and they often have a GIS unit that work on producing maps, updating maps for the city. So those are other jobs that could be appealing to our students as well, beyond the one in the private sector as a GIS analyst, or even if you acquire higher skills like satellite image analyst and so forth, that could be even in the private sector, like in the oil industry or some other type of natural resources fields where they use GIS as a tool to manage these resources.
Thank you for that. So one of the other questions that I had, I know that Dr. Lerkari talked about the project-based course. Can you expand a little bit more on some of the types of projects that students could be working on if they took that particular course?
Yes, so I think one of the approaches I would plan to use, it's a learning by doing type of pedagogy, where students are actually immersed in a project that has a clear outcome and milestones, which would be how they work in a real job, right? That's usually how then specialists work when they finish college. And an example would be, let's say the city of Merced wants to map some land around town, so we can partner with them. We have partnership also with some local museums, like the Merced County Historical Society and Historical Museum, and we could partner with some of these entities to actually do a project that has an outcome for the community. There are also several non-governmental organizations in the Central Valley. They are really eager to partner with the university and offer case studies and some of their expertise. But what they're really looking forward to is to having some of our talented students to then work with them for a semester, and then under the mentoring of a professor, and then work on something achievable. That could be create a map, create a small historical map, or analyzing some imagery that they acquired, and they want some GIS specialists to analyze for them. And all these projects are fairly achievable during a semester. Of course, they require that knowledge that is built up in the course Introduction to GIS and Introduction to Remote Sensing, because those are where you just learn like the nuts and bolts of the profession. And then you can do a project working with a professor. So usually you will meet weekly. We anticipate that the class will be a small class, let's say of 10 people or less. So there is a lot of one-to-one interaction with the professor. We have all the software available on campus in all the teaching labs. And also now the university, through the Spark Center, the Spatial Analysis Research Center, and the library, offer licenses of ArcGIS Pro to all UC Merced students and staff. So then students can also work on their own computers if they choose to do so. And overall, I think that course represents this like hands-on learning by doing approach that we have in many of our courses. And I believe also Professor Rybeck follows a similar pedagogy in his lab-based courses, which are the core of the minor. Of course, computer lab. We're not talking about wet labs, so it's computer lab courses. Yes.
And then a follow-up question to that. I know that sometimes students can have difficulty with differentiating research between an internship. We talk a lot about the experience that goes with both and what the value behind that. Can you expand a little bit more on what exactly is the difference and what kind of experience are students getting with the projects and things like that with this minor?
Yeah, so again, for the project course, usually that happens in a course that is led by one of the faculty involved in the geospatial technology minor. And then as a weekly meeting, as a regular class in a computer lab. Potentially, we can even envision using the TL room in the future. So it's a very specialized room that has a lot of like screens and technology that help this type of interaction. While the internship can be fully conducted through a partnership with an external entity, if the student find one, or we will have also a list of approved partners. So then in that case, the meeting is not going to be on campus. So we just rely on an external entity like a museum or the city or the city GIS office or the police department to certify the number of hours that the student use in the internship. If the internship is instead conducted on campus, working in another research lab, again, that will be a professor who's not directly involved with the minor that is serving in that capacity, like certifying the number of hours and then the milestone of the internship. And I want to share my own personal experience regarding my internships as both as an undergraduate and a graduate student. They were really like career changing and life changing, I would say, because I had a requirement in my program that asked me to do it, so I had to do it, otherwise I couldn't graduate. And at the beginning, you will say why I have to do that, but then after you are actually immersed in a small firm or like in a group of specialists outside the university, you really see how it is in a real work environment. And then I really love what I was doing. And then I pursued my master, where I also had an internship, and that also allowed me to understand what I wanted to do. And then I went for a PhD, really related to what I was doing during the internship. So for me, and now I am a professor. So it was really a career-defining moment of my life and my career. So I would advise anyone who's interested in the minor to consider, of course, the project course, and absolutely the internship opportunity. That it could be really something that help you understand what you want to do beyond college, and then also build that professional network that is essential to find a job after.
Thank you for that. And I think that's part of the importance that what you're talking about is preparing for graduate degree programs too, right? Getting the experience, the knowledge that you need, especially if this is something students are interested in. And I'm assuming that they can also go to you all for additional support with that. So we appreciate you all sharing more information on our new minor. Any parting final words or advice to our students with regard to the minor or just in general?
Well, thanks for attending, and I would just say, be sure, if you're interested, to enroll in Intro GIS 2, Heritage Studies or Geography 2 this spring semester, because that's the only lower level core required course, and then you'd easily be able to, over the 3 subsequent semesters or 2 more years, finish the minor and get in the GIS certificate as well.
Yeah, and if I may, Carl, I also wanted to say that students shouldn't be intimidated by the term technology. What we do in the computer labs is always, especially in the introductory course at the lower level, Introduction to GIS, is a very scaffolded learning process where we do a number of labs throughout the semester, where a student can come in with no knowledge whatsoever of GIS and these techniques and the software, and then slowly it will learn. We have very well done lab tutorials that guide students through all the activities that need to be done that week or sometimes in 2 weeks. So we have had amazing results with some students coming in with no knowledge whatsoever using geospatial technology software, and then just at the end of the semester, when they present their, let's say, final project or homework assignments, and just be really becoming like a young professionals.
Right, right. I would add that each week we have a GIS lab, but the manual I have, each student gets a manual that has screenshots of the steps, and we start with the very beginning, how to use the software, and then we slowly work up through the different tools and techniques, and we're using the main industry standard software, which is now ArcPro. It used to be called ArcGIS. Old timers might remember it as ArcInfo, and it's only been around since the 1990s. So what's interesting about GIS is it's a very new technology, only 30 years old now at the most, really. And I'm actually going to have one small lab where I also introduce students to a free software called QGIS. There's now actually free GIS software where, open source, where you don't even have to pay to get it every year. But a lot of employers still like to see that students have used the industry standard software the ESRI, Environmental Systems Research Institute products like ArcPro, just because a lot of government agencies and companies have already invested in that software, and they have all of their data in it, and they don't feel comfortable moving to a completely free software that doesn't have all the buttons and tools and that the industry software has yet. But anyway, so don't be intimidated. One can come in knowing nothing about GIS, as long as even if they didn't even know how to use the computer, we could, by the end of the semester, they would be up and running.
Yeah, and also thank you, Carl. As a closing remark, I also wanted to say, for instance, like engineering students or School of Natural Science students who think because of their major are they already know they will take advanced geospatial technology courses at the upper level in their major. Minoring in geospatial technology minor and also pursuing the certificate will help them build the basic skills that then they will apply at more advanced and focused level in their own major. So this is not just for SHA students.
That's right. We now have one GIS course in engineering, NIST 132, that's being added. So in the fall, next fall, that will be one of the upper level options in the minor now, even a GIS course in the School of Engineering. So we're going to start to see more of that over the next year or two.
Awesome. Well, we thank you all for joining us today and sharing more about this new minor. I think that this is a really great opportunity for students that are interested in geospatial technology and getting the experience they need. For students that are interested in this particular minor, I do advise you to go to the registrar's website under the Forms tab to fill out the minor change form. Please know that if you are trying to add the minor, we will not be processing those forms until the spring term now, but you are more than welcome to fill it out, and then we'll take a look at it in the next term. Thank you to our panelists for joining us. We're super excited to have this new minor and have more experiences and opportunities for our students.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing this.